All right, ready to dive into some philosophy. Today, we're looking at Gabriel Marcel. He might not be a household name, but his ideas are surprisingly relevant today, especially if you're into philosophy.
Definitely. His work is so thought-provoking.
Yeah, so we're going to be using the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy as our guide for this deep dive, our mission, to figure out what made Marcel tick, what were his big ideas, and why should we care about them today?
Sounds like a plan.
And of course, I've got our expert here to help us unpack it all. They always have this amazing way of connecting ideas and making even the most complicated philosophy stuff crystal clear.
Well, I'm excited to dive in. Marcel is one of those thinkers who can really make you question everything you thought you knew about the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So first things first, who was Gabriel Marcel? What made him stand out in the world of philosophy?
Well, he was actually a playwright as well as a philosopher. Yeah, pretty unusual combination, right? And you can really see how that dramatic side comes through in his writing. It's so full of vivid imagery and this really powerful sense of, the human struggle.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's like he's putting on these philosophical plays in our minds.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm intrigued already. And he was also a big part of that Parisian intellectual scene in the early 20th century, hosting these legendary Friday night salons. Can you imagine those conversations with people like Sartre and Beauvoir?
Oh, absolutely. Paris in the 1920s and 30s, it was like this huge melting pot of ideas. You had all these brilliant minds bouncing ideas off each other. But what's interesting about Marcel is that he wasn't trying to build some big, rigid philosophical system.
Okay, so what was he doing then?
He was more like, I don't know, an explorer of ideas, a seeker, someone who really wrestled with those big questions and wasn't afraid of the unknown.
That actually reminds me of one of his most famous ideas, the idea that we live in a broken world. He uses this example of a subway token distributor to illustrate it.
Yes.
I found that so striking. What do you think he was getting at with that?
Well, it's such a simple image, but it really gets to the core of what Marcel saw as wrong with modern life.
Okay.
That subway token distributor, it represents this kind of like functional and impersonal way of living.
Okay.
Just going through the motions, doing your task, but there's no real meaning there.
I see.
And it creates this sense of alienation, both from yourself and from other people.
It's like we become, cogs in a machine,
Exactly.
losing that sense of wonder, of purpose.
Yeah, I think that really resonates with us today, especially with how technology is shaping our lives.
Oh, totally. It's supposed to connect us, but often it feels like it's just making us more isolated and detached.
Absolutely.
It's like we're constantly plugged in, but we're missing something essential.
Right. And that actually brings us to another really important concept in Marcel's philosophy.
Okay, what's that?
It's what he calls ontological exigence.
Ontological exigence. Okay, break that down for me.
It's this deep human need for something more than just the everyday, the daily grind.
Yeah.
It's a longing for transcendence.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going. It's like we're not satisfied with just the surface level of things. We need something deeper to give our lives meaning.
Exactly. It's not about escaping reality. It's about finding a deeper level of meaning within reality.
So it's not just about getting more stuff or achieving more goals, but about experiencing something more profound.
Right. It's about a sense of wholeness, of being connected to something bigger than ourselves, something beyond just the material world.
And that connects to his distinction between being and having, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like his example of my body. It's both something I have and something I am, which is such a mind-bending idea when you really stop to think about it.
It is. It's like he's pointing to two fundamentally different ways of relating to the world and even to ourselves.
Okay, so how does that work?
Having is about possession, control. It's seeing the world and even ourselves as objects to be used or acquired.
Okay.
But being is about presence. It's about participation. It's more about merging with the experience rather than standing apart from it.
It's like being is about a deeper kind of connection then.
Exactly. And not just with the world around us, but also with ourselves. And I think Marcel is suggesting that our modern focus on having, on consumerism, on this constant striving for more, is actually making us less capable of really being, less capable of experiencing the fullness of life.
Wow, that's a really interesting point. It's like he diagnosed the problem with the broken world almost a century ago.
Yeah.
And his insights are still relevant today.
Definitely. I think he was really onto something.
It's like he's offering a diagnosis and maybe even a path towards healing that brokenness.
Yeah.
I'm definitely ready to explore that further.
Me too.
So where do we go from here? Where do we go next in this deep dive?
Well, to understand Marcel's approach to life, I think we need to look at his distinction between problems and mysteries. It's a really key part of his philosophy.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's delve into those mysteries.
So in philosophy, we're always trying to solve problems, right?
Right.
But for Marcel, it's not that simple. He makes this really interesting distinction between problems and mysteries.
Okay, I'm listening. This isn't about Sherlock Holmes, though, right?
No, no, not quite. Think of it like this. A problem is like a puzzle. It has a solution that's objectively true no matter who you are, like a math equation, or a scientific experiment.
Okay, so those are problems.
Right. But a mystery can't be solved that same way.
Interesting.
To even start to understand a mystery, you have to bring in your own personal experience, your own life even. You have to live the mystery to really get it.
So it's not just about finding the right answer.
No, it's more about how you engage with the question itself.
Okay, I see. So what kinds of things would be mysteries for Marcel?
Oh, some pretty big ones. Love, freedom, the meaning of life. You can't just figure those out with logic alone.
That makes sense. It's like
Yeah.
the difference between reading about love in a book and actually experiencing it yourself.
Exactly. You can analyze love all day long, but it's the lived experience that really gives it meaning. And this is where Marcel thought a lot of modern thinking goes wrong.
Oh, so
We try to turn everything into problems,
Right.
Like there's always a simple solution. We want to measure everything, break it down, control it.
Yeah, I see that.
But when we do that, we kind of miss the point. We lose sight of the mystery, the wonder of it all.
That reminds me of what he called the spirit of abstraction.
Yes.
Like we get so caught up in analyzing and categorizing, we forget that we're dealing with real living things.
It's like a scientist studying a butterfly. They can learn.
Right. It's like reducing someone to their job title or their social media profile. We put labels on everything and we lose sight of the actual person behind the label.
Absolutely. So how do we avoid doing that? How do we think in a way that's more open to those mysteries?
Good question. What did Marcel suggest?
Well, he didn't say that reason was bad or anything.
Okay.
He talked about two different ways of thinking. Primary and secondary reflection.
Oh, right. I remember reading about that.
So primary reflection is like analytical thinking.
Okay.
Breaking things down into their parts, figuring out how they work, super important for solving those problems we were talking about.
Right.
But then there's secondary reflection.
And that one's more about...
That's about stepping back, seeing the bigger picture, appreciating the whole thing rather than just the individual pieces.
So we need both then.
Exactly. We need primary reflection to analyze, but we need secondary reflection to really understand, to appreciate the mystery of it all.
It's like we need both the zoom lens and the wide-angle lens
Yeah.
to really see the world. Right.
Perfect analogy. But when we're talking about these mysteries, especially when it comes to things like relationships, it's not just about thinking, is it?
No, definitely not.
Marcel believed that real human connection, it requires a certain kind of openness. He called it disponibility.
Disponibility.
Yeah, it's kind of a tricky word.
I remember struggling with that one.
But basically, it means being present with the other person, letting go of your own ego, your own preconceived ideas, really meeting them where they are.
And the opposite of that would be?
He called that indisponibility.
Right.
Being closed off, unavailable, like putting up walls to protect yourself.
So even if you're physically there, you're not really present with the other person.
Right, exactly. You might be going through the motions, but you're not really there. And that reminds me of how much emphasis Marcel put on that simple word with.
Well, with?
Yeah, it sounds simple, but for him, it was really important.
What was so special about with?
Well, it points to a kind of connection that's deeper than just being together.
Okay.
It's not about losing yourself in the other person, but it's also not about keeping them at arm's length. It's about finding that shared space, that mutual recognition.
A real meeting of the minds.
Exactly. And that idea of with is really closely tied to his understanding of belief, too.
Oh, yeah. He had some interesting things to say about belief. Like how there's a difference between just having an opinion and really believing in something.
Right. For him, genuine belief goes so much deeper than just agreeing with something or having a fleeting opinion.
So it's about more than just believing that something is true. It's about believing in something.
Exactly. It's an act of commitment, of trust, putting your faith in something or someone, even when you don't have all the answers.
Like believing in a cause or a person or even a higher power.
Yes. It's about saying yes with your whole being, not just your mind.
And that brings us to what might be Marcel's most powerful and maybe most challenging idea.
Creative fidelity.
Creative fidelity. That's a tricky one. Can you unpack that for us?
It's not just about staying true to something, but about letting that commitment grow and evolve as you grow and evolve.
So it's a dynamic process.
Exactly. You have to be willing to adapt, to adjust your expectations. The relationship changes, you change, but the commitment remains.
That sounds like a lot of work, honestly. How do you keep that up, especially in a world that feels so unpredictable?
And that's where hope comes in.
Okay, but he's not talking about just like crossing your fingers and hoping for the best.
No, no. For Marcel, hope is a way of life. It's a belief that even when things are tough, there's always potential for something better.
So it's about choosing to see beyond the current challenges.
Exactly. And hope goes hand in hand with those ideas we were just talking about. Creative fidelity and disponibility.
Right.
That openness to others, that willingness to stick it out even when it's hard. Believing that something good can come out of even the most difficult situations.
So for Marcel, hope is an active choice, not a passive one.
Exactly. He even talked about despair as a kind of temptation, a giving in to the brokenness of the world.
Right.
But hope resists that temptation. It means you keep fighting, keep believing, even when it seems like all is lost.
So even though he saw the world as this broken place, he still believed in hope.
He did, and I think that's what makes his philosophy so powerful. He doesn't sugarcoat things, but he still offers us a way forward, a path toward finding meaning and connection, even in the midst of all the chaos.
I like that. It's like he's saying, yes, the world is broken, but that doesn't mean we have to be.
Exactly. And that's a really important message, especially for someone who's into philosophy.
Why is that?
It's a call to action, to move beyond just thinking about these ideas and to actually live them, to engage with the world, with others, and with ourselves in a way that's hopeful and creative.
You've given us a lot to think about already, but there's one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up. This idea of hope and how it can help us navigate this broken world. I think our listener will be really interested in exploring that further. You were saying that for Marcel, hope isn't just wishful thinking. It's more like a way of being in the world.
Right. For him, hope is an active force.
Active,
Yeah. It's how we engage with the world,
Right.
recognizing that, yeah, things are messed up, but there's always a chance for things to get better.
So it's not about ignoring the problems.
No, not at all. It's more like you don't let those problems define you.
You choose to see beyond them.
Exactly. And hope is really tied up with those other ideas we talked about, creative fidelity and disponibility.
Yeah.
That openness, that willingness to hang in there even when things are rough, believing that something good can still come out of it.
So it's interesting because we often think of hope as this kind of passive thing,
Right.
like just waiting for things to improve on their own. But Marcel is saying that real hope requires you to do something.
Exactly. It takes commitment. You have to really work at it sometimes. You can't just give up when things get hard.
He even talked about despair as a temptation.
Yeah, like giving up is the easy way out. But hope pushes you to keep going, keep believing that things can change.
It's really remarkable when you think about it. Here's a guy who sees the world as this broken place,
Right.
but he still holds on to this incredibly hopeful view of things.
And I think that's why his philosophy is so inspiring. He doesn't shy away from the difficult stuff, the hard truths, but he still shows us that there's a way forward, a way to find meaning, to connect with others, even when everything seems like it's falling apart.
Yeah. It's like he's saying, okay, the world might be broken, but we don't have to let that break us.
Exactly. And that's such an important message for anyone, but especially for someone who's really into philosophy,
Glad you say that.
Because it pushes us to go beyond just thinking about these big ideas, to actually live them, to put them into practice in our own lives.
That's a great point. It's not just about understanding these concepts in our heads, but about actually embodying them in the world.
Absolutely. Marcel's philosophy challenges us to be more hopeful, more creative, more committed to making things better, even in small ways.
Well, this has been a fascinating journey into the world of Gabriel Marcel. I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of his ideas and, honestly, a renewed sense of hope myself.
That's wonderful to hear. Marcel has that effect on people. He makes you think, he makes you feel, and he definitely makes you want to be a better person.
And for our listener out there, I hope you've gotten a taste of why Marcel is so relevant today. He reminds us that philosophy isn't just some abstract thing. It's about how we live our lives. It's about finding meaning and hope in a world that can often feel pretty overwhelming.
Couldn't have said it better myself. He really challenges us to embrace the mystery of it all, to see the beauty in the brokenness, and to keep striving for something more.
Well, on that note, I want to thank you for guiding us through this philosophical deep dive. It's been a real pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to our listener, I hope this conversation has sparked some new ideas and inspired you to keep exploring the world of philosophy. Until next time, keep searching for those answers, keep asking those big questions, and most importantly, never lose hope.